So we'll just take a quick vote. Yes, Santa exists. Do you believe? Yes? We have? Okay. Is that because you already turned your letter in? You want a good answer? Did you see this movie? I love how they resolve it in this movie. You remember the courtroom scene? If you haven't seen it, Santa Claus shows up, I think it's in New York, and they put him on trial to see is he really Santa or not. And the way they prove that he's Santa, the testimony is, they bring in bags and bags of mail, letters that were sent to Santa. And the lawyer said, if the United States Postal Service has agreed that Santa exists, and certainly they do because they delivered the mail, then therefore Santa must exist. It would be great if we had that kind of evidence for Jesus. I've often thought about just mailing myself letters to make sure I exist. Or what about this movie? I just love to have his confidence. Although I don't think that'd be a very good evangelistic approach. We might end up running more people off. And every time you saw God or thought about God or somebody said God, you screamed and went ballistic. That might not work in our favor. But wow, to have his confidence would be incredible. If someone asked you, is God real? And you had this kind of passion. And maybe that's where John is. John, and this is a Matthias Grunewald painting of the crucifixion. John the Baptist is on the right, doing what John the Baptist was called to do, which is to point to Jesus. It's kind of an exaggerated finger. It's a little larger than I think it would be, but regardless, it helps us today see it. John the Baptist pointing to Jesus. Professor Luce is an author that sometimes I read in preparation for sermons, and he was reflecting on this text today, not the crucifixion, but John doing the pointing part. Matthias has painted a picture of this, like a bunch of stories in one. But we're looking at the guy on the right. So Professor Luce does workshops at congregations, and after one of his workshops, he was having a conversation with someone, and came to think, or realize, I guess, how seldom we ask what we believe. What do we believe? So he started to work this, Professor Luce did, started to work this into his workshops, to take a moment somewhere in the workshop and ask people to turn to their neighbor and simply state, what do you believe? After one of his workshops, he was leaving, and an elderly gentleman came up and shook his hand and said, I want to thank you, because I've been going to church for 60 years with this woman, his wife. And it wasn't until today that I knew why. And it turns out neither of them knew why. They've been going to church together for 60 years and had never taken the opportunity to tell each other why they were there or what they believed. Probably assumed, like most of us do, probably assumed that everyone believes what I believe, or that I know what they believe because I think I know who they are. Maybe it's awkward to say what we believe. We might be afraid of getting it wrong, or afraid that someone's going to think we're silly for believing that. In our society today, where we're so quick to debate and criticize and critique, we might not want to put ourselves out there for that kind of response. But it was interesting how much that gentleman appreciated the opportunity to learn from his wife of 60 years what she's believed all this time. John is a great example for us of this. Not just because that's his job, that's what he was called to do, was to point to Jesus, but he's so like us. Well, okay, we don't wear I don't wear animal skins. We're not eating honey and locusts at fellowship time. I don't think so. Right? We didn't serve that today. No? That would be noteworthy. Again, probably not a good evangelistic technique, but we would be remembered as a church. His words are not eloquent, which is not surprising given who we see. You see John walking around in the wilderness wearing animal skins. We might guess that he's not the most eloquent speaker. He's not going to be Billy Graham up there. And when you read what the gospel writers remember about his testimony, his testifying about Jesus, it is not the most eloquent. I don't even know if it's the most convincing. The words. I'm usually not convinced by a negative testifying. And that's where he starts. I am not the Messiah. I am not Elijah. I am not. It's really hard to convince me arguing from the negative. And then when he finally flips to the positive, well, all he says is, there's one coming after me. This is going to be awesome. But awesome how? When I think about, those of us that have lived a few years and we're a little beyond our elementary Sunday school class, and now we have different kinds of questions, and life has roughed us up a little bit. Okay, Jesus is awesome, but life was really unfair to me yesterday, and I want to know how that works. Why was Jesus not there yet? John doesn't get into all that, at least not in what's remembered. Maybe in his sermons he did, but in what's remembered for us thousands of years later, it's just those simple, poor, kind of clunky statements. So my guess is it must have been his authenticity. It must have been that when the people came out and heard his kind of clunky testimony, there was something so authentic about it, more like elf, that kind of passion. He's so convinced himself, he convinces the people around. Maybe that's what we can do when we share our faith. We can be that authentic about it. If you're looking for words, there's plenty of places to look. We have John's words, but we have lots of words in the Bible that are more eloquent than John. You could look to the 2nd chapter of Acts, the Pentecost sermon, when Peter preaches one of the first sermons that we have remembered for us, and he gives this great testimony to who Jesus is. Great words to borrow. Paul's writings, great places to borrow words if you wanted to share your faith with someone else. Our elders. We are blessed with an amazing group of elders in this church. They're wonderful spiritual leaders for us, and they have agreed to share their faith with you. Not today, I'm not going to call you up. Spontaneous. We could. No. They're all taking turns, one a month. If you look to the newsletter, you'll see articles where they've taken a turn to write something about their faith. We didn't ask them to write a whole creed. Creeds are great tools for us. They're great for us to bounce our faith off of the creed, to reflect and get a sense of where do we agree, where do we don't, where do we round out our faith. So our elders are not writing creeds for us, but they're sharing some of the passionate, authentic stuff about their faith. And you can borrow all their words. I think they'll be okay with that. No royalty fees, just use it. They'll be honored that you did. Authenticity. Getting the vocabulary from people like our elders, or the Bible, or other models of faith. It's a great opportunity for us to share our faith with someone else. This is what I come to think about testifying. It's like unwrapping a gift that is for you, but you're unwrapping it in front of someone else for whom that gift is also meant. It's like Christmas morning, you're going to unwrap your gift, and as you unwrap it, you discover inside this gift that is so personal and amazing and meant just for you. The person that bought it and wrapped it, they know you so well that when you unwrap it, you think, wow, I wish I'd put that on my list. What a great idea. I didn't even know I needed all that stuff. How awesome it is that I'm getting this stuff. As you unwrap it, you're unwrapping it, and you start, wow, now that I've got this gift, tomorrow's going to be incredible. And today is even better because I have this gift. So as you're unwrapping this gift, if you'll dare to do that in public space, with the person in the mirror, yourself, or with someone you love, or someone that you know is in need, the neighbor down the street that got their life roughed up the other day. So if you'll unwrap this gift in front of them, as they watch you unwrap it, they will be inspired to want to unwrap their own gift. As they see you unwrap this gift that is changing your life, if you'll be authentic about it, maybe a little vulnerable, maybe show them or share with them how this has changed your life, it will begin to inspire them to want to unwrap their own gift, to grab their gift from under the tree. And like John's punky words, does it really matter whether or not you shred the paper to open that gift, or if you're one of those that neatly unwraps it, folds it up, and saves the paper for them? That's not happening in my family, but some families do that. Does it matter which way, if you keep the box or chuck it so that you can hold and embrace that gift that's just for you? It doesn't matter. How you unwrap the gift, how you unwrap it in space, is not nearly as important as that you actually do unwrap it, so that someone else can watch you do that. Testifying isn't always about trying to convince the other person that you're right. It isn't always even trying to convince the other person that God exists. In fact, my sense is you will change their life more. You will bless them more if your unwrapping of the gift is really you enjoying what was meant for you to enjoy with you. And if you'll let someone inside that experience, then they're going to want to unwrap their gift. And guess what happens when you watch them unwrapping their gift? We won't get into the domino effect and how we change the whole world yet. But just think about you and this other person. Just you and that other person. We've talked a lot about John this Advent. I don't normally spend so many Sundays on John. We've talked about John showing us that this promise of Jesus is just beginning, that the gospel story is not the conclusion of the promise, but just the beginning of a promise, and how if we live our today based on a promise about tomorrow, it changes today. Now we're talking about John helping us experience that promise and simply engaging what we believe. Maybe for you it's just starting with the good confession. That's where our tradition is. And I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and my personal Savior. That's the core foundation that we share. And then from that point on, we trust that you'll take the responsibility to sort of spin out, what does that mean? What does it mean when I say that Jesus is the Son of the living God? What does it mean when I say that Jesus is my Savior? We trust that you're going to work on that stuff by yourself and with others, because there are so many ways to answer that. We are so blessed by the diversity of answers to those kinds of questions. We would be less than if there was only one answer, because we only see one little slice of who God is. But with the diversity of your answers, we're seeing so much of who God is. Our experience of God is more rich. Maybe it's just starting with a good confession. That each day as you unwrap the good confession, you see a little more of it. And that gift becomes more powerful in your life. And then more powerful in the lives that you touch. Advent is not passive. Advent is preparing ourselves for Christmas. And if we will do the activity of unwrapping the gifts that are there for us, then Christmas is a much more amazing celebration.